All right, men. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am Andrew Bonds, your host, and we are here with Joe Cramond. And here are some questions I have for Joe today that you might have too. So, what are the 1% moments in life that keep us really where we're at, looking up at everybody else who's winning on the podium? Like they have the medals, we just have a sad, pouty face, and we're watching other people win. Like what is those teeny tiny moments that they got right and we didn't? uh, what is it? What does actually peak performance mean? I mean, how does it and really how does it translate into winning in life? You know, if we're not a professional athlete or something like that. A few other questions is how do you embrace fear and use it as motivation, and how do our insecurities cause us to remain stuck where we're at in that stuck mindset? And what would it look like if we were able to overcome those insecurities? I mean, what could our life look like? So, a little bit about Joe. He's actually the head of business development at a company called Pickle. And he's a man of many talents. He's a dedicated competitive bodybuilder. This guy's jacked. If you check him out on Instagram, he's a peak performance coach and an entrepreneur. And he shares my passion for entrepreneurship, and he has a love for competitive bodybuilding. This guy can move some weight around a little bit, and he's dedicated his life to pushing the limits of what's possible, both in the gym and in the business world. So I really appreciate you being here, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's been that's a great introduction to this conversation.
Yeah. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about why you're excited to be here in front of the men of resisting beta.
Well, from what I understand, obviously there's a lot of men struggling these days. Struggles growing up. My mother was an alcoholic. She passed away from liver cirrhosis when I was young, when I was in my mid-20s, and I'm 39 now. And my father he was 59 years of age when he had me, so I was a young boy looking after an old man. So I grew up with a different. He was actually a POW in the Second World War as well, born in 1923, I believe, and kind of and a traditional way of looking at things. And he about how to get through struggle, obviously going through relational changes he would have done in the UK, especially during the war and post-war. Things are very different, and men didn't have the about their feelings back then like they do so much now. It wasn't as encouraged, but they and I think that it's becoming people to open up and have these conversations, and that's one of the reasons why I'd like to be able to add some value.
Thanks, man. So tell me a little bit about the journey, maybe in the Reader's Digest version, because we could probably tell your story the whole episode here on kind of some points of transformation maybe over. I mean, obviously you're a competitive bodybuilder right now, so that didn't happen overnight. Have you always been jacked and ripped, or is that something? why did that journey start? And
yeah, no, I'm not
who you are as a man today.
Good question. And when I was younger, I was very, very insecure and so when I was a teenager, I wasn't particularly bullied at school, but I was one of the quiet kids in school. Didn't really people, had a lot of inner issues, just having anxiety around people because of my mum's alcoholism and the unstable environment at home. But when I got to 17, I offered a job in a gym. So that was my first job I'd taken. It was in a leisure gym within that, and I don't know, over time training, and that just gave me more and more confidence because people were approaching, seeing my body transform, and I think with that sort of interact, social confidence, and I met a guy who was an ex-professional from Poland. He worked as a KP in the kitchen in the thing. He looked like Dolph Lundgren, out of the Rocky films, with a flat blonde flat top, and poor guy. And he gave me some. So I started training with him in one of the local gyms, not the gym I was working at, because I didn't, to be honest, to get to the level he wanted to push me to. me on to then do my first competition, which was when I was 19 years old. I actually came second in the nationals for the juniors at that time as well, the under 21s. That just gave me such a big boost in confidence. Obviously the genetic, reasonably good bone structure, but it was more about sticking to a routine and a structure of, and just having that solid structure of training hard and blasting my body 5 days a week with the exercises he was showing me. If it wasn't for that, I'm working in the gym and actually training that hard and dedicating my life to that one discipline, if I'm honest, it would have been very to get over the anxiety and the nervousness that I had as a younger man. So that was the beginning journey.
So now you're almost 40, right? I saw on your Instagram that you're ramping up your training again and you start working to get back into competition shape for next year. Is that right?
That's the plan, yeah. So I came second to Mr. Britain in 2015, won the Midlands Pro-Am show for NABO, which is the Natural Amateur Bodybuilding Association. I won a few other regional shows in the UK as well. But my last competition, I split up with my ex-partner, and one of the reasons why that was I was selfish. I dedicated my life to the sport. I wasn't paying her the attention that she felt she deserved. It's a hard job being in a relationship with someone who's I think with any sport, because you have to be selfish to win. It's very difficult to find balance, especially when you've constant imposter syndrome in your mind of, am I good enough? I can be on stage. So you're just so laser focused on yourself that you tend to which is one piece of advice I would say. If people don't neglect the people closest to you that are supporting you, because if you lose them, it makes things very, very difficult. I gave up for a while competing because of that relationship breakup. So take a step back and focus on other things. And bodybuilding is not cheap with the supplements and the food and everything else. So we're interested in trying to make some money and turning.
So most of the men listening to this episode aren't bodybuilders or even aspiring bodybuilders. I mean, I would imagine most of them lift weights or think they should lift weights. So what have you learned from your experience in bodybuilding, and what is some advice that you can share with the men that maybe not using the direct skill set from the discipline to get into competition-based shape, but just kind of moving them from stuck in their life to a better version of themselves? I mean, what advice would you have for a guy like that?
I would say take the small steps first. The simple things like getting out of bed and making your bed in the morning, a cold shower. It doesn't have to be a fully structured routine straight away, but small steps makes a massive difference. And the fact that nervous about going into the gym, just make that effort to do it, even if you're just not lifting as much as you're worried about being watched. Everyone's there for the same reason. Whether put on size, get fit, looking at each other. People always are very self-conscious when they go to a gym, but even if it's for a jog, always do something, stay active, because as you're aware, Andrew, to be physically active. And if we're not, we're very sort of sat kind of can really cause a lot of mental health problems as well. It helps to just stay active and just make small steps, and over time, those steps will increase to bigger accomplishments if you want them to. That's give really for people in that position.
So just to take those small steps and just focus on starting to build that discipline. It sounds like you think are the utmost importance to start getting some momentum, whether it be getting stronger or leaner, or honestly doing anything in life that can be applied. If you're starting a business, you're trying to save money, you're trying to reduce a certain habit or unhealthy habit like drinking too much or smoking or video games or whatever. I feel like
Well, this is it. Yeah.
that could apply, right?
That's it. Yeah, it's just looking at what you're
So,
doing in life that's toxic that you can reduce.
so what made this, what you did to put you up on those podiums were the other men sitting in the crowd looking at you that tried to do the same thing? Like, what was the X factor? What do you attribute that to?
What side of it when you're being judged by the panel and by the crowd?
No, no, like the men that you beat. Like, what made you difference from you were all striving to be up to win the gold or win first place.
Hmm.
You were up there, they weren't. What was the difference?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think there's many people. It depends on their lifestyle. You know, if you've got children, I mean, I haven't got any children. You know, I have a lot of responsibilities, and you having a balance. I was in a fortunate position that I could just focus on. It was getting me through the issues I had when I was younger, and I became a little bit addicted to it, if I'm honest. Whereas people that were watching, you know, they don't know to be like that on stage because it's not really a healthy lifestyle. It's very, very stressful on your body. With percentage of body fat, and you're putting your body to be winning shows or even coming top three or top six on a stage, and also the mental aspect of being judged by a panel by every week, being sort of picked to pieces, basically. To do the slightest thing wrong, and you've got a whole audience that are watching you, is quite a tough thing. So it's not for everyone. So, yeah, it's a difficult one because I wouldn't say that I was any better than the guys watching me in the audience that were out of shape. It doesn't really work like that because some of those people may have other areas of their lives that are far more fulfilled. At the time, I just sacrificed everything to do that thing. So it depends how much you want something and how badly you want it, I guess.
What were some of so the the few things that you mentioned of fear of judgment and imposter syndrome
Hmm.
are things that I'm sure you felt in your experience in professional bodybuilding, and I'm sure you probably feel them in other places too. How have you navigated those today and in the past to move past them?
Um, it's taking yourself out of your comfort zone. You've got to feel uncomfortable to grow. That's I honestly believe that. I think no matter what it is, you've got to be made to feel like you're not good enough to give you the motivation to push yourself to be good enough. So it's if you just zone all the time, never challenging yourself, you're going to grow in life because you've got to go through that pain. It's like progress demands sacrifice, in my opinion. Pays off as much as it hurts at the time to feel like you're not enough to do something. Once you make that first step and you keep doing it, even if you don't achieve the top level, done more than a lot of people have, because most people are quite happy to sit and have things handed to them or get away with. So that's the only thing I can really say is it was something that I just did through rather than being told to do it, and it made a massive difference in my life.
Hmm. Where do you think that discipline came from? I mean, it was one of the things I learned in my life is most of my life I would as in my adult life I would say I'm not a very disciplined person. And then all of a sudden I went through my divorce and I looked at a bottle of bourbon on the top of the fridge and I was like, I just want to get smashed. I want to get hammered. I want to numb it. And for some reason I didn't. And I was like, what if I use this pain for good? And I had this idea of waking up before sunrise for 100 days in a row and journaling. Relatively simple, but I was like, holy crap, I'm doing it. And I documented the whole journey on Facebook and Instagram to kind of like a makeshift accountability partner.
Mhm.
And then I worked out for 100 days in a row after that because my next I was like, okay, well, let's see what I could do for fitness. And then I stopped. And then my discipline muscle got lazy. And then I started up again my discipline muscle this year and results are coming in more of my business and podcasting world. So like what were some of those moments for you when you were now that you're kind of getting back into the swing of things, or maybe as you look back on your life?
Yeah, it's all. So the journaling is a great idea. I recommend that for anyone. To write down their thoughts and feelings, and also write down one type of life where they want to be in 1 year or 5. And I think when I was a boy, I mean, I grew up watching the old school action heroes like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and Jean-Claude Van Damme and people like that. Big muscular chaps. And I aspired to look like that. So I did how they trained, their mindset. I did have idols, and I think sometimes that helps if you've got somebody you aspire to have their lifestyle. It helps that sort of drive somebody who's achieving what you want to achieve. So it's not necessarily unhealthy to not even necessarily compare yourself, but be there is an inspirational drive. But it can be somebody in the family as well. It could be somebody that's a bit very in business. It could be a close friend, but someone you really are looking at and thinking, what their part, I want something that they're doing, and I can achieve it, because if they can do it, you can do it. So the good starting point.
I like that, because I just had a guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago named Marcus Murphy, and he had talked about a couple spheres of people in your life. The sphere of people that you look at, that you aspire to be, but you probably will never meet. Like, these are your heroes, the actors, the famous authors, that kind of stuff. And then there's the sphere of people that you spend your time with, your friends and your family and that kind of stuff. And that saying, like, we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, right? But I think that there's kind of different levels of that. And it sounds like one of those people for you, or a few of those people for you, were Arnold Schwarzenegger and a few other people, right? So how do you, I mean, have you found that to be true as you've reached towards the level of success that you've had, both in bodybuilding and obviously in your business too? You're an entrepreneur. I mean, have you found the commonality there?
Oh, definitely. I've got Arnold Schwarzenegger's encyclopedia on bodybuilding, and I've looked at how he transitioned from, obviously, pumping iron. I've watched that so many times, I've lost count, and then went into films and some of the greatest action movies. Then into politics. So he's a businessman, he's right with problems. So it's a pretty interesting journey when you look at people that get from in fitness and in sports, how they can turn in other avenues of business as well. I think it's great to have a challenge. I think it keeps you on your toes. I think it keeps you feeling like you're something to strive for, and a challenge. Even it doesn't have to be a big one. But just think, living is the key.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're a business development manager. I mean, you're a busy guy. Like, how are you going to get through balancing all of that? And how do you typically get past the moments of I don't feel like it's, as you're moving towards competition next year? And obviously you're in great shape right now in your late 40s. Like, what are some like little tools or tips, or like, how do you do it, man? I mean, I'm sure you're just as tired as the rest of us, whether it be in the morning or the evening, whatever you work out.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
What are some things that you can help the men with when we're like, I'm exhausted, work is this, family is this, all of these things, all these excuses coming in your mind? How do you navigate those in your life?
Yeah, some days are hard. A lot of it's to do with my nutrition. I try and keep my nutrition on point. Caffeine helps. If I'm honest with you, lots of that's one of the ways I do get through those tired days. But no, it's just I suppose I'm just kind of so used to doing it. But into routines, I definitely think you should get one. I think getting the training done, so first thing in the morning, is very important, because your testosterone levels are their highest, as you probably are aware. Train on an empty stomach. Yeah, best time to get it done, and at least it's done. Then you can focus on the rest of the day. So try and get up well, rather than laying around, and don't let your alarm to snooze, because then your brain goes into another sleep pattern again. They say there's some science. Definitely don't hit that snooze button.
So you said nutrition on point. Tell me a little bit about what you mean by that.
So I stick to a high protein diet. I find it keeps my body clean from building up too much in my arteries, in my blood, and to keep down the carbs, not too low, but good complex carbohydrates, not no cheap meals. I try and avoid bread and sugar, if I'm honest, as well. Dairy, I keep that to a minimum. So it's boring, but I kind of live on mostly beef and chicken and whole grain rice. That's pretty much my stable diet. A lot of eggs as well. Morning scrambled eggs. Well, after training, normally scrambled. And smoked salmon is my breakfast. And eating like that, you'd be surprised people that are spending money on takeaways every week. I think once or twice, I guess, is a bit of a cheap meal, but people, the fast food option is a convenience, don't they? But they don't realize that it's not cost effective to spend a bit of time just prepping some food. It really does make a big difference.
That's one thing I've never done a really good job of, is food prepping. I don't eat on a lot. I cook. I'm a decent cook, and I cook most of my meals, but I try to keep it simple. I'm kind of curious, just from a guy who is obviously really successful at it, what are some basic stuff that you do that set yourself up for success every single week when it comes to the nutrition side of things?
So I was an air fryer. Air fryers are so convenient. You just literally pop your chicken breast in, few buttons, put some seasoning on the chicken or whatever meat you're in, and it will just be done within 20 minutes or so. And it keeps the juices in as well. And then just boxes, get a big wok full of cook your rice in there, and then don't overcomplicate things and just have 3 or 4 per day. You can store some in the freezer. You can do it all on a Sunday, ready for the week. Some of the food as well, and it's just that preparation. You could spend a Sunday evening just prepping your food for the rest of the week if you haven't got time to do it during the week. But I tend, at the end of the day, I'll just prep for the next one. And then obviously remember, because it is eating like that can be. I think some people eat their feelings, I would say. Like you, so they, they don't really eat. Look at their body as like a supercar. I think, if you had a Ferrari of dirty diesel and dirty fuel, gas, you're going to put clean stuff in to look after the engine, and our bodies are, they're optimized. They'll look after us. So, look after it best you can. Think about what's going into your mouth.
I mean, they used to be. I started intermittent fasting probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it taught me 2 things. Number one, I ate because out of emotion, way too often, or out of boredom. I felt sad, I felt overwhelmed, or I was bored. I'm like, let's go eat. And it taught me. The second thing is it taught me that most of the time I was hungry, I was probably just thirsty, and I could do a lot more things with no food. Like, I work out fast in a fasting state. So it's kind of cool that you said that, like, eat work out on an empty stomach, because before I talked to my trainer, I was like, do I need to eat before I work out? They're like, no. It's like, do I have to have protein right after I work out? They're like, no. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I can stay in a fasted state and work out in the morning, and a lot of times I don't eat until noon or 1 o'clock, and it works for me. But I enjoy it, and it's allowed me to keep relatively stable on my weight as long as I'm consistent. And I don't.
It's good for your energy levels as well and your focus.
Crap.
Yeah. The full of your stomach to digest it and everything as well. So it takes the energy away from everywhere else. It can really make you feel lethargic as your stomach. So I would always recommend eating small portions, but start midday, and then small portions of food through fast between sort of sort of 7 o'clock in the evening till do it until midday the next day is very effective.
Yeah, I think that
Hydrated.
for me, like now I'm doing a lot more research about protein and how much protein I need to eat because I'm 6'5", 240, right? So that's I guess that's probably around 100 and I don't know. I think it was like 130, 140 grams of protein a day. It's a lot of freaking protein. I was like,
Yes.
how do I consume that? you know, and how can I set myself up for that? And for me, I'm figuring it out, but it's not a perfect science, but it's when you look at your protein intake, do you gauge it off of, or where do you find that number for you?
Yeah, so it's normally 2 grams per kilo of body weight. Kilos, so it's like I was so 120 kilos, roughly 2 grams of protein. So yeah, you're looking at a lot of protein, like 200 a day is a lot. I was eating 6 meals a day at one time when I was on my off-season stage because 3 kilos, and I'm only 5'9", so I'm a lot shorter than you as well. So yeah, I was heavy, very heavy.
Yeah, you guys, us Americans have to go the different route and go off of Fahrenheit and pounds and everything. It just throws these conversations for a loop because neither of us know how to do the calculations in our head. So, how have you used some of these things to improve in business? Like some of the things that you've learned and the discipline that you've learned from bodybuilding, and how has that carried over into our other areas of your life?
Well, I was told when I was competing that I needed to market, sort of like make some money back from the money I was spending on the shows and on the supplements and the for sponsorship deals especially. I started learning social media marketing and be able to promote myself, create my own website. And then I found from learning those skills, I was able to offer it to small local business. When I was going to get my haircut, like, I saw your Instagram, I saw your. Can you help us promote what we do and get some new customers? And I never really thought route of actually helping businesses with their marketing, but that's the way it ended up. So I set up my own agency, and I started outsource people to do some of the more complicated stuff. I started offering some SEO and some website and paid traffic, and I looked at all the different ways that the marketing. It's always fascinated me anyway how advertisers get their products, and obviously we live in a very consumer sort of driven age now. The clever marketing techniques of getting people over the line of purchasing stuff. It was always fascinated me, and the protein industry and all about that, very competitive. So that's what got me into the market. Eventually led me into doing what I do now, which is helping business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders speak on podcasts like we're doing, and there to drive them more business and it's all sort of hand in hand worked along the same way. So getting those free supplements, it shows, they're like, oh, you're not having that followers on Instagram, it's like, oh, great. You have to have a minimum of 10,000 to be given the green light to get your to you every week and all this sort of stuff. So it's a bit cut. But I had to do it, and I cringed every time I had to stand in the mirror and take a selfie with a tub or whatever I was doing. It was not my thing. I did, but sometimes you just got to do what you need to do in that sort of industry.
Yeah, I think that there's some interesting carryovers here from imposter syndrome in the gym, or your experience with imposter syndrome, but also the imposter syndrome that the men who are listening to this, because most likely, I imagine, a man listening to this, he's successful in his career, he's got decades of experience doing it, and it's relatively easy for him, or for the most part, and he's a thought leader, but he might not. It might feel weird to call himself that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you've seen the journeys of people that you've worked with your in your company, and helped men go through this process. What sort of transformation have you seen? Maybe for yourself, because you kind of lived it and did it for a long period of time, or maybe a few key stories of people that you've taken from just an expert in their field to then a thought leader, right?
Hmm. Well, because many people, when they first start speaking on podcasts or conversations on camera, they're terribly nervous, and a lot of the times they don't know what to say, they don't know how to articulate themselves, and it does take some work. But when you spend more time doing it, it gives you better communication skills in life. It's better to have conversations outside of doing, really inspire people to want to listen to you. So it's a really valuable tool, and a lot. I think, especially unfortunately with the youth of today, that they're glued to phones so much, and they're not looking up and having a conversation with the person sat them on the bus or whatever's going on. Everyone is glued to a device, and I think skills, being able to look somebody in the eye and speak to them is valuable, because people aren't going to be able to do it as much. So I think having that skill of just doing it on camera is, most people they don't want to do it. They got the hit them. So I think it's really your own self-confidence to just get out there and try it. Record yourself. You don't even have, or publish it. Just do it, see what you, and then eventually you can just improve on it if you feel like you need to as well. So
Man, I think that there's so much commonality here to where the practice mindset, because you started off with kind of fitness training, starting to lift weights, and now kind of practicing speaking and putting yourself in situations where you might look a little silly. You might look like an idiot. Your ego might be screaming at you saying, "Hey, stay in your lane. Don't go in the other one because that's uncomfortable." So that
mm-hmm.
practice that as we get older. I was just having a conversation with another gentleman this morning about, as we get older, the urge to like not practice, or the urge to not do things that are uncomfortable or that we suck at. It gets a lot harder and harder, especially because we stop doing it. We just focus on what we're good at and we ignore what we suck at. But this is such an interesting parallel from that, because the just practicing it. And I look back at my journey to where this all started was on TikTok, and I was just practicing on TikTok, and me staring at my phone in my bedroom with a ring light. And the first, whatever, 15 or 20 were god awful, but like nobody saw them. But eventually I was getting a million viewers from just a silly, goofy video of me just being myself and being authentically me and showing my goofy side, and I got a lot more comfortable just being articulate and also being a lot more comfortable putting myself out there without fear of judgment, or knowing that there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
1% of the people out there that just have such high of their own insecurities, or so many of their own insecurities, that they have to like vomit over somebody else to make themselves feel better. And that's on
Mm-hmm.
them. That's not me. That's all about them. It's nothing to do with me, you know? So I like that this parallel that we're going down, because there is that practice mindset that if you don't adopt it, you're gonna just stay where you're at. You're gonna be status quo. You're gonna be mediocre in maybe all phases of your life, but one, whatever one you're willing to go out the comfort side zone in. And it's kind of an interesting topic.
No, it is
So,
definitely.
hmm,
Yeah, I also believe that maybe some of your listeners will have a lot of experience in business, really offer value to people. That's what they forget. A lot of people I couldn't get in front of on camera, talking about my journey, but they don't realize that story that they've got, and the most probably got as well, will really help inspire other people, especially if they've been through a lot of struggle. Not everyone's somebody who's successful. You'll think, oh, sometimes they might have had it. Everyone realizes what's gone on in their past that's made them to be strong enough to determine to push them into being successful. More often than not, a hero story, from adversity.
hmm.
So it's really valuable for people that have done well. Speak about how and why they've got what they've got, I believe.
One of my favorite mentors, Ed Milet, talks about we're all capable and almost positioned really well to help the man or woman we were 5 years ago or 2 years
Mm.
ago. Like we're just, and there are a lot of men going through this cycle. Like I look at myself, where 5 years ago I was in a marriage where almost basically a sexless marriage where I was the worst version of myself. I drank a lot. I was 260 pounds, not being my authentic self, couldn't show my authentic self to my wife at the time, and she resented me, and she should have, because I wasn't being who I was. I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't leading myself and then leading in the relationship. I was allowing her to lead, and I was just being a passive, aggressive, you know, using nice guy who was just doing what he thought was right because that's what society taught me to be, a nice guy, but it was wrong. So
Mm.
now I'm on a mission to help like all those men who are who are that guy right now, right?
Mm.
So I think that there's a lesson here to where you're perfectly capable of helping a man who is a couple pages behind you in the book, and there's a lot of men that are probably there that would appreciate the fact that you're only 2 pages ahead, because there's so many of these high paid experts who are 100 pages ahead or
Mm.
decades ahead, and they're really really hard to relate to because they're so far ahead they can't necessarily go back to the granular steps that took them to get there, so this is I think this is there's this interesting movement of influence and thought leaders to where you really don't need the millions of downloads and millions of followers. Maybe you just need 100 true fans or 100 views 2 years ago to make
Yeah,
a
exactly.
difference in the lives of those people, right?
That's a
So
really good.
it doesn't have to be vanity metrics of like, you know, followers who don't do anything except gawk. Maybe you could impact the
Yeah.
lives of 100 people and you could change the world with 100 people, right?
Mm. On that as well. Yeah, I mean, also it's just being the best version you can be. You don't have to be online. You can always learn how to story and be a thought leader within your own community and help people that are struggling. So and that adds anyway. If there are people that are going through some dark times, find somebody who's going through worse, and if you could just offer a helping hand to that person, especially the people that you see that are homeless, and especially in understand the vets and stuff that are homeless, and it's a big problem here in the UK as well. I always do what I can for charity if I can. People that are on the streets, problem. It's a real shame to see. So the people that might be listening is you can always help somebody.
Hmm. So I was trying to kind of round out the episode here. So one of the things I ask every single man and woman that I've had on the podcast is two questions. The first one is, what does it mean to be a man to you, Joe?
Oh, that's an interesting one, especially nowadays. You've got to be careful what you say. um, I think being the
No
best.
filter.
Well, being the best, being strong, and I don't just mean physically. I just mean it for the people that love you and that care about you, and also network for friends as well as family. Reliable. Don't lie. Just say it how it is. Be true to yourself, as you said. Yeah, I mean that to me makes a man to be a man. I guess that's. It's not just about the physical appearance. It's about having the mental strength and just being able to be relied upon when the top and when shit hits the fan. Basically, that's all I can say. What do you
Love
think?
it. So,
What's your take on that?
man, I like it. I get a different answer every single time. So I appreciate everyone's perspective, and I love the authentic viewpoint of you showing what it means, because strong to a bodybuilder sounds one-sided, one-dimensional, right? But there's so many dimensions to it, right? There's the mental strength. There's the strength to know when to use your strength, and when to be kind, and when to be soft, and when to let that strength down and open up your heart, right? There's the discipline and knowing when to use your strength, when you need to go to war to protect your shit, when you need to go to war to protect
Mm.
the ones that you love, when you need to go to war and protect yourself and stand up for yourself and lean in to a confrontational situation in a healthy and kind way,
Yeah,
or in a way that sometimes you just got to break shit to survive. I mean,
yeah,
that not going to
exactly.
happen for most people, but when there's somebody in trouble and you can either step up or you can be the person on the side of the street with their cell phone capturing somebody getting mugged on the side of the
Oh,
road, right?
yeah. Much of that I see is shocking. Yeah, the way things are going now, just boring, tragic things happen to people is unbelievable. It really is. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I would say as well, being an
yeah. I
active
mean,
listener is important. Is part of
mm,
not acting on emotion.
yeah.
Keep control of your emotions as best you can.
So I'm all about momentum. I'm all about creating baby steps or small chunks into getting some quick wins for the men. So I want you to put your professorial hat on and give the men some homework and break it down to over the next 7 days. What is one simple thing that they can start doing in their life where they can start to get some quick wins based on the topics that we've talked about today? What would you say that they should do over the next 7 days to give them some momentum and some quick wins?
I would say get a journal, writing down goals of where you want to be and the kind of 1 year from today that you're listening to this. Do I want to be happier? Do I want to be healthier, fitter? Or have a partner that loves me and I love them? Be in a better relationship? Whatever that goal down, and then the baby steps would be a structure in your life of order as well. So stay tidy, keep in your life space around you tidy. Because most people that are going through hard times, they struggle to pick up the socks on the floor or the crisp packets on the side and bed, and they just leave things laying around. And that sort of stuff can make things worse. So try and tidy, and that's exercise. Number one, I would say it doesn't have to be a gym, but I would say make sure that you get up, go for a walk outside, start to realize we're not meant to be trapped in the four walls, and there is a massive amount of nature out there to be explored in the fresh air. Look at the trees, realize that out there and that things aren't always as bad as you might think they are, being trapped in four walls and overthinking things. And I think just doing those simple steps over the course of the 7 days, if you do them every day, that you'll feel a lot better at the end of that week, and it will just go and compound from there. So that's that I can hand out at the moment.
Hmm. There's some gold there, brothers. So, Joe, I'll add your Instagram and your website in the show notes. Sounds like Instagram's the best way to reach out to you. I'll add your screen name in the show notes. Is there any other places that men should that you suggest men reach out to you on besides Instagram?
They can add me on Facebook. So Joe Cramond, Cramo screen. More than happy to accept friend requests on that. And obviously, if there is any men that are in business that wish to journey of thought leadership, or even just starting to tell their story and getting out in front of the right, you're somebody who's been through some struggles yourself and you wish to help others on similar sort of, you can reach us on the podcastguestingpro.com or at it's spelled PIKKAL.com, and that's the company that yeah, we can help you with that one.
Hey man, I appreciate that. I'll add that to the show notes so you guys can stay in touch with Joe. Joe, I just want to take a second and honor you for the man that you are and for the times that you have gotten through when that little voice in your head is telling you to quit and telling you that you're not enough and telling you that all of the excuses that you could come up with to not do the right thing, and you doing the right thing over and over again for a long period of time, because I know that the men are greater for hearing your story and hearing the simple tips that you share today. And I just want to honor you for all of the work that you've invested in your life and the ripple effect that you're having at this moment right now and what you have done in the past. So I appreciate you.
That's massively appreciated. That's really kind of you to say so, Sarah. And hopefully, what we've talked about can help a few people as well. That's the main thing. So, it'd be nice back if we have so.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Joe.
Rose Andrew, you take care. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll cut it there. So, just at the end here, what I'd like you to do is just, whenever you're ready, answer the question, why should men listen to this episode? The first couple seconds, introduce yourself, and then answer the question in a enthusiastic way. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah? So, introduce myself.
Brother, not me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joe Cramond. Yeah, let me know. When do you want me to start?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay. Hi, my name is Joe Cramond. Devon in the UK. I've been a successful bodybuilder in my time, placing second in show 2015. I've been for the university speaking with Andrew today on how to overcome imposter syndrome to get through childhood and any issues in life, and I hope that I can pass on to guys that will really benefit you in the future. So I'm looking forward to conversation.
Awesome.
Does that do? I've never done that before, so I didn't really know whether that was any good.
It's up to you, man. If you feel good about it, we'll run with it. If you want to, it's all.
Oh no, well that'll do.
If you feel good about it. All right.
That's fine.
Stop the recording there.